Welcome back to the MacGuffin Movie Club with your hosts, Dylan Olive.
And Caden Keats.
Yes, and today is November 18th, 2023, and we are 55 days away from the release of the new Mean Girls movie, which I makes a lot of sense to be made, and I don't know why I never considered it as, like, a possibility, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For, like, for a legacy sequel. I mean, I guess it's a remake, actually.
Well, actually,
Okay.
I think it's a remake. Yeah, it's
Oh,
the
I
musical.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still has, like, a bunch of the original cast members, and I wasn't a fan of the original, really. I thought it's aged really poorly, besides, like, the R word and the N word and the, stereotypes and whatnot. It still just, like, wasn't super funny, or, like, I don't know, I wasn't into it as much as other, like,
Yeah.
high school movies.
Like
So
your
I hope
Superbads
that
and
this
stuff
one
like
is
that.
good. Yeah, sure. Superbad, or even like Booksmart, which is like, has like some corny moments. I enjoyed that more so than Mean Girls. I don't know. Maybe it's like I don't know. It's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
I was like born closer to the year that it came out than, the year that this comes out. Anyway, yeah, that's coming up. For other movie news, there are like still a bunch of upcoming projects. I think one thing that like sort of scares me is Best Buy plans to stop selling physical media such as 4K Blu-rays and DVDs, possibly as soon as the end of quarter one of 2024.
Oof,
So that's concerning. I know that they don't
Very concerning.
sell a lot of stuff in Oceania physically, like in Australia and New Zealand and whatnot. Which is weird considering how bad all of their internet is. So that's sad coming from Best Buy, but I could always just guess that it's like part of maybe Best Buy just like as a corporate. It could be more representative of Best Buy as a corporation
Yeah.
rather than physical media. Because, like, I would imagine...
I think it is.
Yeah, they're probably not doing so well since Amazon. But then besides that, also, Netflix is starting to do, like, physical location, like, pop-ups.
Oh, they are?
They're not really, like, stores. Yeah, it's strange. They're not... I mean, they are stores, but, like, they're very specifically themed and timed stores, you know what I mean? So... it would be like more like an event thing for like a premiere of a show or like some exclusive merch drop or whatever. So that's interesting. I guess it'll probably be successful for them. Fucking everything is.
I mean, I think they did report a loss recently, like with the password sharing stuff. Like people did cancel their subscriptions. So I don't know.
Yeah, and also with the
I feel like they have definitely adapted the best out of all the major streamers, though, like, compared to Warner Brothers and stuff like that.
No, yeah, sure, totally. Yeah, it does feel like it's slowly turning back into classic TV, but, they are still on top compared to everything else. I feel like I should say, since it's sort of relevant, I would advise all of our listeners to, if you haven't already, cancel your Netflix subscriptions and or pirate whatever you can from there, or just like buy physically, due to their immediate profiting and support of the Israel Defense Force and
100%.
And their cooperation with that. It's not fun, but they're like a couple companies you're probably going to want to boycott, them being one. It's so easy to pirate things in the 21st century.
Cancel your subscription to all streamers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Probably involved with some sort of profiteering, like.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Because also the new Scott Pilgrim came out, and I do want to watch that. So I'll get that on whatever else. Speaking of shows, though, did you see Studio Ghibli might start doing like TV productions?
I did
or
not.
TV shows or whatever. Yeah, it was on just like some it was on a Japanese news website, so it's just like I'm only reading it through translations, but like there are other things talking about it. That's interesting. I don't know how they would approach that, because they obviously have a very different like work ethic and work environment compared to most animation studios in Japan. So I don't know how that would happen or how that would be like financed, but
Yeah,
I mean it's interesting.
It would be interesting. I wonder how long they would make a show for, since they are so detail oriented. Like, would it be an 8 episode thing where they try to make a full like anime length, 22 episodes per season? That's
if it's just like a one core miniseries or like an OVA or something. Yeah, it would probably be more likely to be like a straight to streaming service type series. But regardless, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Also, speaking of animated series, I don't know if you care about this at all, but there's like more trailers and promotion for A24's Has Been Hotel. Have you seen any of that? / like, do you care about any of that?
I have no idea what that is.
Seriously, you never heard of it?
Maybe I've heard the name, but I have no clue what it is.
Okay, it's very popular on the internet. It's sort of like a Smiling Friends thing where they just like made an internet pilot for a series that A24 is now, making a whole series based off of. And I'm not like a fan of it. I don't like it. It has a very internet sort of sense of humor.
Yeah.
And it's very like over the top, crude. And like I don't want to just like be on a bandwagon of hating something. I just it doesn't look like the kind of thing that I would enjoy, but it is big, so I hope, I don't know, I mean, I hope A24 decides to, keep funding these small projects, because I think it is going to be successful, honestly. If
I mean, let's hope so.
Yeah, I guess there are a couple other smaller announcements. A24 is working with Darren Aronofsky to direct an Elon Musk biopic, which is very funny.
Yeah, I think
I don't know how that would play out, but
it's the most insufferable headline I've read. I think it sounds annoying, just in concept.
Yeah, I don't know what like kind of story you would tell about him. You know what I mean? Because it's like he's done so little. He's just like a character who's like the main character of life and makes it everybody's problem.
I'm really curious because I don't know much about Aronofsky's political views besides that he's like an environmentalist guy. So like I'm curious if he would do a cynical like take on him and something that's against him, maybe like a Citizen Kane, even though he, his life isn't as interesting.
Sure, yeah, like a social network kind of thing.
Or if you try to do a typical like inspirational biopic. I mean, it's Aronofsky, so I mean we'll see.
Yeah,
it's probably gonna be at least a little cynical, but
he is a cynic, but he is also kind of a contrarian in some ways. So
he's definitely an edgelord, I think.
Yeah, it would be like weird and totally misreading the room if he made like a puff piece, but fuck it. Who knows?
He made The Whale.
Yeah,
so
he made The Whale.
I don't know if
I didn't dislike The Whale. I thought The Whale was like fine. It was just it had some weird whatever. That's not what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
Other announcements. They're making another Peanuts movie. That's cool. I remember enjoying the first one, but I kind of want to rewatch it.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen it since
I saw it when it came out, and I remember nothing about it.
Yeah, it was cute. It had some nice animation.
Yeah.
So that's, I hope that
pretty cool.
Does well. They're making a Barbenheimer movie, I guess.
Yes.
Even though that's like
I was against it until I learned that it was like an old school 80s B-movie director making it.
Oh, that is
and
cool.
Then the tagline was like, she's got an A bomb and D cups, which is,
wow.
So I'm just all for that. Just trash.
Yeah, it sounds like a Smosh video.
Yeah, it does. But, made by an old sicko.
I sure do hope that is good, but it probably won't be. They've managed to avoid making a meme movie, for some time now.
Yeah.
So I guess it's like the closest thing you got to that before was like the Emoji Movie, where it's like there's nothing here, but whatever.
Yeah.
There isn't a lot to
Dumb Money. I haven't seen that.
Oh,
but
yeah,
that's
I forgot about
kind of
that.
the closest thing we've gotten.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's like Cocaine Bear, which became a
Yeah,
meme and
yeah.
used
That was
movies
like
for that. Yeah,
Sharknado kind of meme marketing, you know.
yeah,
But yeah, that'll inevitably just that'll either get canceled or I think probably just get like thrown onto one of the streaming services. That's not getting like
Yeah.
a whole thing. That'll be a midnight movie at best.
I mean, the budget's only like $1 million, so it's
Oh,
not gonna
okay.
be-
Yeah, well then.
yeah, it's a small scale thing.
Yeah, weird that that's actually and it's being put out by what company actually? Do you know
I
off
don't
the top of
know.
your
It
head?
feels like a Vinegar Syndrome thing or something.
Yeah, I don't know how they would get the like legal rights to do that if it wasn't a big company putting a big budget into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I would imagine they would want to like most projects they just like dump way too much money into. So, you know, as seen with the failure that was like the Marvels and then
yeah.
the Flash and a bunch of other bombs. Apparently the new Hunger Games movie isn't doing very well, but you know.
Are you a Hunger Games person? I've never
No,
been in
I
that. Yeah.
watched the first movie and thought it was very mediocre, and like even as just like a concept, you know, I saw Battle Royale and I like that more, but also there's just like far more. It's like the quintessential young adult novel
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
story, you know what I mean? Because it's a strange way of phrasing it, but what that really means is just that like there are sometimes dark things in like a mostly, you know, teenager kind of story. It's just a teenage story with some gore or
Right.
love.
It's a lot of times feigning adulthood without actually like paying attention to making an interesting literary thing.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's not for me. Whatever.
Definitely.
Some people will like it. One thing that I do like the source material of that is getting an adaptation is The Legend of Zelda, which will be live action
Yeah.
and written by Derek Connolly, who wrote the scripts for Jurassic World and Detective Pikachu. So that's probably going to be shit, but you know,
Yeah.
I hope it has at least. I think a twink should. You know, God, I hope that like a real androgynous small person plays Link and not like, you know, Chris Pratt playing Garfield.
Chris Pratt as Link would be honestly some pretty funny casting. I think that would be the first funny role that Chris Pratt has ever played.
They do like the exact same role announcement, you know, lead out that that they did for the Mario movie.
Yeah. He still, instead of Goombas, he talks about like what, bokoblins or whatever. I love Zelda.
I spent
and
hours of my life defeating bokoblins. Odie. Okay, sorry. What were you gonna say?
I love Zelda. Like it's an important part of my like artistic development or whatever. And I don't know. I'm wary of a Zelda movie that's especially one in like modern blockbuster filmmaking because like the old Mario movie from the 80s, I guess early 90s maybe, like that movie is bad, but it's so bizarre and interesting.
Yeah, it's memorable.
Yeah, like they made a gutter punk cyberpunk Mario world. Like that's incredible.
Yeah.
I think that movie's like visually is kind of incredible.
Yeah, it looks like Brazil.
Yeah. So like I wish we were still in that era for something like Zelda that's arguably equally as bizarre in its like visual style within the games, you know.
There are a lot of things that could be very high concept in the world of Hyrule, you know? And I think, like, the optimal version of a Legend of Zelda film is, like a Ghibli film, you know what I mean? Where it's more about the tone and the atmosphere, and there's, like, a light story that maybe gets a little bit epic towards the climax, but it's not like a big Hollywood production, because like both The Legend of Zelda and a lot of Hayao Miyazaki's films were just like inspired by living in rural Japan.
Right.
So that would make sense if there was like some sort of collaboration there, but of course,
No.
you know, this is what we get. Whatever. I hope.
See, they're not gonna do Zelda.
Yeah, it seems that with this and the FNAF. Did you watch the FNAF movie?
No, I I was going to, and then I saw the clip of Matt Patton in it, and I was like,
Yeah,
I'd kill
that
myself if I watched
I'm
this whole thing.
I'm gonna just blatantly plug something here. I am working on a video. I'm editing a video that's like a full 20 plus minutes of me just sort of ragging on the film. So that'll be out by the end of the month. So subscribe to my channel. That'll be linked in the episode description. But yeah, it seems that video game movies are going to be the next wave because they figured out how to just make the same movie over and over again and slap a new coat of paint on it. And the difference between this versus like superhero films is that with superhero films you felt the obligation to care about new characters, and they had to make you care about new characters, whereas with this, they don't have to do any work to make you care about it. You just have to see the thing on the screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm actually really curious if video game movies are going to catch on, because I feel like this happens every 15 years or whatever, where people are like, video game movies, they've cracked them. Like,
I feel like it's true this time though, not because any of them are particularly great, but because they're like doing really, really successfully.
But I think like Five Nights at Freddy's did not multiply well. Like it's dropped off hard on its second week, and then like I feel like the Mario movie, God, that's benefited because it was animated. You know,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah,
I don't know.
that got like $1 billion plus, I think.
Yeah, that one definitely.
Yeah, and with the FNAF movie, it was made by Blumhouse, so it was like really cheap budget, so it still did make its budget back.
Oh,
who knows? Yeah, I might be a little bit premature with the prediction there, but if that's the direction it goes in, then that's a little bit sad, but whatever. Hollywood is always a little bit sad, I guess.
Especially now.
Yeah. Speaking of Hollywood and superhero movies, there are not confirmed, but like leaked, sort of who they're looking at for the Fantastic Four cast. Are you connected to Fantastic Four like at all?
No, I mean, I used to be a big Marvel person, and like Fantastic Four was never one of my favorites, though. I'd say like The Incredibles is probably the best Fantastic Four movie
Oh yeah,
they're ever gonna get.
shit, yeah. Oh my god, I've heard that before, but I totally forgot. That is actually that. Yeah, no, I do really like these characters, and I'm legitimately like sort of emotionally connected to this the same way I am with like Spider-Man or Batman, because it's like, I actually care about it. So it's like, I hope that it's good, because the other Fantastic Four movies are so not good. Like Fantastic is I would put on the same level as like Catwoman or Daredevil the original, as like being so hilariously stupid.
I think
that it's kind of entertaining.
Honestly, the first two movies, like I know there can be, but like, I think those movies are terrible. Like Fantastic is bad, very bad, but like I think I don't know. It's weird that they haven't cracked it, because it feels like the easiest, most stripped down version of
Yeah, it doesn't feel like that hard of a story to make work. You know what I mean? Especially with characters that are so solid as Doctor Doom or Galactus or Silver Surfer,
Right.
or the four characters. Like I've read a couple of their comics, and I really like them. I'm surprised it's taken this long, but fuck it, whatever. We'll get there. And it'll probably be kind of mediocre, but I probably won't buy a ticket to see it in theaters.
I might be forced to. I might be peer pressured into, but
Yeah, the last like 5 MCU movies I've seen, like Black Widow and Shang-Chi and Thor: Love and Thunder. I think there was another one.
Ant-Man?
Oh yeah, and Doctor Strange too. I saw all of those in theaters only because my friends were going. And I probably wouldn't with any of them. Still couldn't get me to see the Eternals. So
The annoying thing with the Eternals is that like it's almost interesting compared to everything else. It's like almost kind of different.
yeah, it's like there's like 13 characters, and it's like kind of darker and about like dinosaurs or something.
It's something I forget exactly. It's something like that. It also like it's one of the only Marvel movies of the past 5, 10, whatever, that actually feels like it looks expensive. Like it doesn't look good, but it looks like this looks like a movie that cost $200 million, and not a movie that looks like it cost $50 million and then $100 for the actors.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
They did have a lot of actors. but yeah, I don't, I don't have any particularly positive thoughts about the Eternals. The other big upcoming, or at least in the works, blockbuster projects that I'm looking at is a Taika Waititi Star Wars film, and then also more, or at least another Star Wars film that follows the story of Rey and the like sequel Disney trilogy. I don't know how they're going to continue to fumble the bag, but I'm sure that they will.
Yeah.
They have not made like. I did actually really enjoy what I've seen of Andor. I only saw about half of it, but I did genuinely really love that. I thought that was
get around to it.
I think it's worth checking out. It's not like the deepest thing in the world, but it is
Right.
a really well made science fiction story. So
it's just a solid show from what I've heard.
yeah, excited to see probably nothing happen with this. And the last news story, like news update for film that I'm going to talk about, and the one that I'm most excited about and like emotionally engaged in is the entire journey that Coyote vs. Acme had gone on.
Right.
It was created and fully animated and fully finished and shown to test audiences that all gave very positive reviews, and people were calling it the next Roger Rabbit, which is always a good thing. And then it was completely shelved by Warner Brothers, and then everybody came out saying, hey, that's fucked up. Why is that even legal?
Yeah.
And they showed a cast reel that had a Clash song in it, so that probably would have been the soundtrack, and that probably would have banged. And it turns out that there were companies that were interested in buying the film, and then Warner Brothers, due to all of this backlash, finally just said, like, all right, fine, somebody else can buy it. And so they're actually doing that. And that's kind of incredible. I think that, like, people talking and making a fuss about a movie is enough to bring it back. I'm surprised it didn't happen with Batgirl.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they won't get their $30 million tax write-off.
I wonder what the difference between this and Batgirl, because I feel like Batgirl was a probably more anticipated movie than this, even though this looks better.
Yeah.
I think it might have been the cast reel, like the fact that there was such a vocal thing, and then people were like, this looks so incredibly well made and, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what convinced them. Maybe it was after,
Yeah, it could also just be the strike.
I think that might be part of it. They didn't want more bad PR.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of that still going. Oh yeah, since we last recorded, the strike ended.
Yeah, both of them.
And they got a bunch of good living conditions, and there's still a lot of stuff with AI. I think they're gonna like reassess the agreements that they've made about AI by like 2025. I think.
Yeah, it's a 3-year agreement. So I think 2025 or 2026, because I forget if this was supposed to be like the 2022 agreement but
right.
Yeah. Next 3 to 4 years they'll be going back.
Yeah, fucking Christ, I hope they're prepared for that. I believe in unions. I believe in the power of love. I don't know. I hope that comes out. I hope that movie comes out, and I hope it's good, and I hope that they make it illegal for companies to do that to artists' work.
It's such a shitty thing that happens, and it's crazy that it happens. Like it just feels like it should be illegal.
It feels like sort of dystopian, and I also really hope that live action crossed with 2D animated films make a comeback, like cartoon,
100%.
Live action crossed with cartoon films make a comeback, because to my knowledge, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is like pretty much the only really great one. Like I'm sure there are some other ones here and there that like I can't think of, but
I haven't seen it, but it looks incredible, or at least really interesting. It's called Cool World, and it's with Brad Pitt and Nick Cave.
Whoa.
And they're like it's like a rockabilly noir thing. I think that's the right movie.
Huh.
It might be. Yeah, it looks insane.
Wow, that's weird. Yeah, it's directed by Ralph Bakshi, who did the Lord of the Rings thing. Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds fascinating.
Oh, I don't think that is the one with Nick Cave. I think that's a different movie.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Brad Pitt is also in a movie, like a rockabilly movie with Nick Cave. So I've heard it's not great, but it looks like insanely interesting. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'd like to at the very least scrub through this. There is also like a sexy woman there, like their Jessica Rabbit
Yeah.
character. I would be very interested in like researching more of that film. Regardless, though, that's not what we've come here to discuss. Last week, I recommended and suggested that both of us watch and discuss The Fantastic Mr. Fox by Wes Anderson from 2009, which is one of my favorite childhood films that I'm very nostalgic for in a lot of ways. But since then, I think for me at least, it has aged quite well as both a family film and just a film in general, an animated movie. What was your experience with seeing it just now for the first time?
It was interesting. I think I had actually seen it when I was really young, and I just
Oh, okay.
don't remember it. But I mean, I really enjoyed it. I think it was super charming and super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it did feel like I think if it had been a childhood favorite, it would have hit me a lot harder. But like it's I can see why this is a lot of people's favorite movie. It's so beautiful and well made.
Yeah, it's hard to like dislike that that vibe, that tone of autumn films. You know, everything is very orange. I forgot actually coming back to this now after a couple of years of having not seen it. I forgot how kind of ugly everything is, like especially
Yeah.
compared to Isle of Dogs, where all of the animation was like super, super, super detailed and like perfectly crafted. And in this, it's also very detailed and perfectly crafted, but like it's a little bit, you can like sort of see that it's slightly lower budget. You know what I mean? You can see, like the little miniatures that they use versus like the bigger models, you know, the sizes are sometimes inconsistent, and it's like that doesn't really take me out of the film. It's just like
Yeah.
it adds an extra layer of style to it for me at least.
Yeah, I think it adds to the movie that there is that layer of imperfection. I think that's kind of the thing, like, Wes Anderson is known for being like, oh, he's a perfectionist, but like I think the thing that he's the best at is having imperfections in his stylistic perfection. Like nothing is ever in his symmetrical scenes, nothing's ever a mirror image. There's always some sort of character and some sort of wart. And I think this movie is kind of the most extreme form of that, since there's so many more pieces that are all controlled by him.
Yeah. Yeah, and also because it's animated, he can like bend reality to a greater degree to create his vision. Also, the style, it's great. Also, I do kind of want to give more of a backstory, just that like I think this was the very first film that I had ever seen in a theater, and Wes Anderson was like my first favorite filmmaker, which I think is a lot, which is probably true for a lot of people in Gen Z and people around my age, because he has a style that is so particular and noticeable that even as somebody who is just starting to get into film, it's easy to understand why it's impressive or why it's unique,
Right. It's the same thing with Tim Burton, I think.
Yeah.
Obviously, Wes Anderson is I think, much better filmmaker than Tim Burton, but like, or at least consistent.
Yeah.
It's the having such a recognizable, interesting style that makes him so accessible.
Yeah, like I remember specifically when I was maybe like 10 or something, my dad showing me Bottle Rocket and explaining how like one of the shots was symmetrical, where they were both like standing on equal sides of the screen and like had the items placed in the same spots. And I was like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's just something that I hadn't noticed before. And this film, sort of, and a lot of his work to me, has that feeling, and it's also just cool seeing him grow as a filmmaker over the years, because I loved Asteroid City. I thought that was like one of his best movies.
Me too.
I'm surprised that it's kind of mixed reception, I think.
Yeah, so I thought, I walked out of it, I was like, that's probably one of the like two movies that has gotten quarantine right. It's like one of his best movies. It's such a complicated like essay of a movie, and I was talking to people and they're like, oh, I thought it was just okay. It was like one of his more, I just think that's crazy.
Yeah, especially after his the French Dispatch, where it was like, it was shorter stories, so it was like less structured as like a complete narrative, whereas this film is like has a bunch of, I guess they're both differently uniquely structured films. I am surprised that general audiences connected less with Asteroid City, but regardless, Fantastic Mr. Fox. I love this. I guess to explain the plot of the film, it's based on a book by Roald Dahl, and follows a family of foxes whose father is a conniving thief, a sly fox who steals from these British guys and gets into all sorts of trouble. But it's also like a marriage story, because it shows the strain that like lying and deception puts on his marriage, and it follows.
Noah Baumbach wrote it too.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he co-wrote it.
Oh, okay. Wow. Huh. I guess that's just his niche then.
Marriage stories.
Yeah. And it shows. Yeah, it really is a family film, because then there's a cousin and a son, and their connections and their own like smaller little character arcs that they go on that are still likable and fun and quirky. In a way that works really well animated. I think it hit me harder than I expected emotionally, revisiting it. Still, it feels like I'm thinking of like the scene where they're standing in front of the waterfall, and it's like you get a moment of serenity within the sort of cartoonish chaos of, conniving Willem Dafoe rats, and I thought that it worked really well for me.
Yeah, I think the scene with the waterfall and the stuff with the dad and the son was definitely the highlight of the movie. It felt like the part that was the most personal and the most like tapped in out of everything.
Yeah, honestly, it feels like a lot of Wes Anderson's films are parent-based stories. And then also, it's not like, the deepest thing, but the way that the animal world reflects the human world is very like entertaining in because it's like it's in such a direct and like obvious way. They might as well be humans for most of it, despite their only being different because they have to live in the wilderness and whatnot, but it's all like basically human culture. So I found it very funny, and like they would say so cuss rather than actually swearing.
Right.
It like really takes advantage of that. I also just like thought it was I thought it was quite funny like that.
Yeah, it's so weird like that it was greenlit in a way, because it's such a specific movie, and in a lot of ways it's for a kids movie extremely mature, and not in like a like Shrek winking and nodding to the parents, but in like a lot of it's a style parody. A lot of it relies on like emotional intimacy, and I don't know, it's for something that took a lot of resources to make. It's so idiosyncratic, even more so than a lot of Wes Anderson's work, which is already extremely idiosyncratic.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because it's a story that follows a fully grown man, and of course there is younger characters that like children can relate to, but it shows a very different life perspective than would be in other sort of like family films.
Yeah.
and he's played by George Clooney. It's got a star-studded cast as well.
The cast is insane.
Yeah, yeah. Defoe, obviously, I mentioned before. Wilson, I think, is in. I think he's in every Wes Anderson or no.
He's
okay,
not
actually,
in one.
he's in a whole bunch, but not all of them. Anyway, actually, Bill Murray was in every Wes Anderson film up until Asteroid City. That was only because of filming during COVID. But yeah, great cast, and I'm glad that it felt like these actors actually like cared about voice acting, rather than just like saying the lines that can sort of go wrong a lot of the time. So I'm really glad that it actually worked here.
Yeah, it's a lot of these performances are really astonishing, like for actors who are not voice actors and who are celebrity actors. And I think it's so much because of Wes's like control over his company that allows him to do that, instead of just some random like Disney getting Chris Pine or whoever to voice the main character. Like it's so tightly wound.
Yeah, and like actors delivering their lines in like the same room together, or like doing Foley as they're reading their lines. It's it all comes together very nicely. I never question this world. It like fully brings me into it, into a fox who has to put a down payment on a house. It's great.
Yeah. It's such an interesting movie, like, because Wes Anderson is such an apolitical filmmaker, or was, because I think starting with his past few, it's gotten a little more current, but like Bottle Rocket, Royal Tenenbaums, Rushmore feel very...
Yeah, it's more about kind of people's connections with each other than with the world.
Right. And this movie feels so tied in with like the Bush era and kind of like late stage capitalism in a way that his other movies aren't, even if it's in a very minor way. It's just an interesting, like, stylistic, I guess. I haven't read the original book, so I don't know how much of that is in the original book. But it's an interesting choice for him.
Yeah, it is, and I think it just like fits really neatly into the story, and it I love this movie. It's a favorite. I don't know how much more I necessarily have to say about it, though. Was there anything else that like really stuck out on first watch for you?
Not really. I mean, yeah, I think it's just a rock solid movie, and it's also like just visually so gorgeous. It's just like
it is really a treat to look at.
Beautiful. Yeah, it felt very set piece based, kind of episodic and just doing new stuff all the time, being interesting all the time.
Yeah, new ideas being thrown out, This is what this place looks like, and this is what this place does, and this is how all of these things combine. Yeah, it never stays still for too long. I'm honestly like surprised at how fast it went by, even with it only being around 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's under 90 minutes. Yeah, great movie.
Great movie. I'm going to give this one a 10 out of 10. It's one of my favorites ever.
Yeah, I have to give it an 8 out of 10 just because I'm maybe on a rewatch, but, don't have that nostalgia quite for it. But I think it's just absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I understand. It's not like it's likely not going to blow someone's mind. But however, what may blow someone's mind is the other film that we're going to talk about, which is Killers of the Flower Moon by Martin Scorsese.
Wonderful movie.
Yep, just came out a couple weeks ago. Closer to a month ago.
In October.
Yeah.
So.
And I loved it. It really did live up to everything that I was hoping that it's going to be. Seriously, what I noticed also is I rewatched The Irishman recently just to like get a refresher because I hadn't seen it since 2019. And I think with that film I would call slow cinema. I think that movie has a slow pace and is very long, and I think that it having a slow pace adds to the film because it adds to the themes of the film of
Right.
aging and dying and whatnot. So I am glad that that film is slowly paced. Whereas with Killers of the Flower Moon, despite it being slightly longer, I thought it went by like it was as though it were 2 hours. I thought it was paced kind of perfectly.
It's sped by for me. And again, talking to people who are like, "Oh, I couldn't sit still in the theater. It's so long." To me, it's weird to call a 3.5 hour movie tight, but it is so like economical and precise with everything it does.
Yeah, it feels like it uses all of the screen time properly. I also did purchase a copy of the novel that this is based on, so I'll be reading that soon, and I'll see how that compares. Because one thing that I know about this film, just from interviews with Scorsese, is that this is focused more on the relationship of DiCaprio's character and Gladstone's character, and their marriage and everything that it goes through, and that makes sense because I guess it's more personal than just like a straight up investigative work, we're the FBI, we're gonna, and when they do show up, it does get that last 30 minutes is very different from the last 30 minutes of like a lot of his other movies, because in like Goodfellas or Casino, it's like, yeah, well, and then eventually shit just started crumbling and people were getting killed and it all fucking fell apart because that's how it always goes. But in this movie, it's like they really like it feels more like they're paying attention at trying to emotionally like have the viewer feel like it's falling apart rather than just feel like they're watching it fall apart. You know what I mean?
Right. And I do want to add that part of the reason, just aside from being personal, that Scorsese and the writer Eric Roth made it about the relationship between Ernest and Molly is they felt like having the detective story would be a little bit of a white savior narrative. Like DiCaprio is supposed to play the Jesse Plemons part, and I think they wanted to reframe it as more of like a relationship story and a story about people rather than a story kind of sensationalizing these horrific events.
Yeah, and also,
and they kind of comment on that at the end of the movie.
Yeah, that was yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I will say I've heard, I'm not 100% sure, but I've heard that part of why the FBI did this is because they sort of just wanted to put their name on the map, less because it was like a really important thing, which kind of makes sense and is an unfortunate irony of the real life events.
It was the first, I believe, FBI case. Like J. Edgar Hoover was 29.
Yeah.
It was and in that ending, which we'll probably talk about a little more extensively later. I mean, they do mention, and it is true, that the FBI did pay or give approval to the like true crime radio hour that was given out on these events, making it into entertainment.
That's okay. Yeah, we'll talk about entertainment and the morality questions later because I do just want to talk more about like the actual filmmaking,
totally.
Which is like I think this is one of Scorsese's best. It's like up there. Probably my fourth favorite of his, but like it's God damn it! I'm so happy that it didn't disappoint me.
I was hyped over the moon for this. I was like so excited, and it somehow exceeded my expectations. Like I think, it's probably my second favorite behind Raging Bull. Yeah,
it's like there's so many unique and memorable scenes. And it, just like as the events unfold, it's like what's going to happen, but the way that not that the way that it happens is particularly interesting, but the way what you're watching the characters say to each other is all interesting. The dialogue is like perfect throughout, and all of the acting is perfect. I feel like a lot of this film is based around the acting. And the dialogue and the characters' interactions. If Lily Gladstone doesn't win an Oscar, I'll eat my shoe on camera.
It's
De Niro also would probably be a good nomination. DiCaprio
De Niro
less
is
so,
so
but
incredible in this movie. I think
DiCaprio's doing his DiCaprio thing.
Well, I think he's playing against type in a lot of ways. Like normally he doesn't play low status characters. Even someone like Rick Dalton or whatever is like he's kind of cool. Like not that he's cool, but like that's kind of how he's played. And Ernest is just a guy that is he's so dumb.
Yes, that's what I was going to mention. Yeah,
he plays him dumb, and I feel like you don't see that often with DiCaprio.
He's a very easily manipulated character, by his uncle, and a lot of Scorsese's protagonists are stupid people, but in this, his like pull and push between the other characters and the people around him is fascinating. It's like he grows and learns, but not enough to be a good person, And and I, also personally, this is one thing that some people were bugged about that I wasn't, is the fact that they continued to be married and he continued to poison Molly throughout their marriage. I wasn't bothered by that, partially because it's based on a true story, but also partially because I think like in that time it was like you just get married and then you just deal with it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like there was so much less respect for women and for Native American people that I can buy that happening.
Yeah, I mean it did happen. Like that's also part of the thing. I feel I think some of the stuff I've been seeing, like the think pieces, have been saying like, why do we focus so much on Ernest and not Molly? Like, why is he the main character? And I think it brings up the question of like, how do movies determine their main character? Because sure, he definitely has more screen time, but the movie is so emotionally rooted in Molly, and so like it never feels like the movie sympathizes with Ernest. It is always watching him, not like living with him. Whereas Molly, it's so invested in her and her interiority in a way that's not in DiCaprio.
Yeah, her own internal conflict. And it's also a question of like where you want to draw the line between what the viewer is taking away from it versus what the film is trying to say versus what most viewers take away from it. And it's all different kinds of interpretations. I know that this was sort of popular on Twitter for a while there. There was one critic who is a Native American, and they had said that watching the film was like hellfire, and that it normalizes the violence by showing it all, which I would argue that it does the opposite of, but I can't say that for certain, you know what I mean? Because I'm because I'm very white, so what I have to say kind of doesn't matter a lot of the time, but like what I have to say about the movie, does that matter? I don't really know. I feel like I'm kind of out of my element, but it's also it's an emotional statement that you could support with more evidence that maybe you don't, but I could never do anything to take an experience away from someone as a moviegoer. Right. Are you following? Does that all make 100%, sense?
100%. Yeah. I think the depiction of violence in this movie is really interesting, because it's like it's some of the most visceral and upsetting violence I think has ever been put to screen.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of reminded me of Raging Bull, like that, where in that movie it just like makes your skin crawl.
Yeah, like it's just part of what makes it so upsetting is it's not gratuitous at all. It is so blunt. Something like Sallow, is so over the top in a lot of ways that I don't think, it doesn't hold the same weight. Whereas this is so grounded, and I think whether or not, like what the conversation people are having ultimately is it responsible to put something this horrific on screen, and I think that's maybe
especially not in the form of a documentary.
Right, yeah. I think it's the most interesting conversation about film that has happened on a mainstream level in a long time.
Yes.
Like it's talking about the responsibility of this medium, and not in a way that's like, is this problematic or not? Because I think it's hard to argue that the creation of this film was unethical, like, because of how much Scorsese worked with the Osage and how many Osage actors are involved in the movie. I think it's a question of responsibility of the medium, and I think that's such a complicated and interesting question.
Yeah, and oh yeah, that also reminds me of like the greater story of the idea of, or the greater idea of films being first and foremost entertainment, and then secondly art. Whereas, you know, if you consider films to first be art, and then the effect of the art being entertainment, sometimes I feel like I don't mind. I don't think it's unethical to show horrific things in film, because I don't think that film as a medium has the first goal of being entertaining. I think it has the first goal of being a piece of art. And it's like, you look at an old painting of some horrific tragedy from history, and you don't say that that's unethical because it's showing all this horrifying violence in such a strong and artistic way. It's just art. It's not considered entertainment the same way that movies are. And if we want to consider movies as high art, then I think that the notion that it should be entertaining, or that you're making it for the purposes of entertainment, is sort of holding it back. And that's where I disagree with someone like director Michel Haneke has talked about that, about like Schindler's List by Steven Spielberg, as being like a bad film because it makes the Holocaust into a heroic story of a man, which that has
that quote too about the same.
Sorry,
thing. Kubrick has a quote about the same thing, that like I forget what the exact quote is, but it's something about Schindler's List where he talks about like feeling like it's not capturing the Holocaust. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, and maybe with movies like Schindler's List or like Killers of the Flower Moon, it comes down to the structure of the film being a series of events in a narrative sense, with a rising action and falling action, and three acts and a climax, and what that, maybe that's part of an issue. That like people can't separate narrative structure from what they're being shown. Anyway, I don't know. Did any of that make sense?
No, that totally makes sense. I think it's a complicated thing, because like I think it's impossible for a movie to be unethical unless it's production. Like, I think a movie's production would be unethical, but I think the movie itself, I don't know if it can be, but like, I think about this all the time. It's a thing that Paul Schrader talked about in a roundtable, where he talked about writing Taxi Driver, and the Harvey Keitel character in Taxi Driver was originally black, and he talked about like talking to Scorsese, or maybe it was Scorsese to him or whatever, and they were like, we can't do this because this is going to be politicized and become a rallying cry for the wrong type of person. Like showing a white man brutally kill a black man on screen is just going to have an inherent power, and then the context around that is going to speak to people, and that would be irresponsible. And I think it sticks with me all the time about movies, since they are perceived as popcorn entertainment a lot of the time, have a strange power and a strange subconscious power. Like, I think Schindler's List is, a masterpiece for one. But like, it's so, it puts its allegiance towards someone who does the right thing. And I think that's, if someone finds that unethical, that's more of a conversation about how we write about history. Whereas the question of responsibility is so much more rooted in what are we saying by putting things on screen. Yeah.
No, I follow that. Yeah, because it's like it also kind of reminds me of like I'm anti censorship. You know what I mean? Where it's like I'm fine with I may not like it, but I'm fine with a movie like uh what's it called, Tears of Freedom, or that recent
Sound of
conservative
Freedom.
movie
Yeah.
Sound of Freedom. Yeah,
God.
I'm fine with that existing, because even though it's spreading a message that I completely disagree with and think is harmful, it's like, will that movie change someone's mind and make them agree with that movie? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because then that
Yes.
is harmful to me, because I see those ideas as being harmful. Whereas if someone agrees with the ideas, then they would see it as doing good for the world. You know what I mean? And so then you sort of, at least I sort of start understanding why people would want things censored. But like I don't know. Maybe I'm just like getting too. Maybe I'm going way off the rails here.
No,
So I don't know. Actually, I'm going to encourage our listeners to comment on YouTube,
Yeah.
or leave a review on Spotify, to tell us like what you think, because I would really like to hear more perspectives on that.
this is like, especially in an era when we are like, just as I mean, I think I'm focused a lot on like American film, not to I watch a lot of foreign movies, but I think I'm in America. That's where I should try to get my message across. And I think since we're in such a political time right now, and we need a level of praxis through art, and I think film is an area where we haven't really gotten that. And the way forward in movie making is such an interesting topic, especially since the movies we've had that have been these like more independent crossover hits haven't necessarily been your political type movies. I don't know. It's such a big discussion.
Yeah, it definitely goes beyond either of us. I should probably take a couple college courses on history and world politics before saying anything too grand or strongly worded. But regardless, I still think, regardless of moral implications, I still think that Killers of the Flower Moon is a masterpiece of a film in a lot of ways. I guess just to go back to it, I just want to talk about how like fucking I mentioned it before. So many of these scenes are so memorable. Did
Right.
the main like leitmotif ever get annoying to you? Because they played it a bunch during the film, and I could see why it might be annoying to some people with like the twangy strings. You know what I mean?
No, I loved it. I think it was such a mood in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and putting that on top of scenes like at the oil rig at night, and the camera is just like dulling all the way past it, and it's like, where this is going, and oh my god, it's like such perfect tension. And then by the time that like you get to closer to the end, with the house that's blown up, and it's like, oh god, holy shit, it's like such it's the most like emotional that a film has gotten me in so long, and so good. It's like the master, both Scorsese and Shoemaker or Shoemaker and all of the actors. It feels like they're all like giving 110% effort. It all feels like they're at like the top of their game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's such a powerful like culminating work of so many things.
You know what I just realized is Eric Roth also wrote Forrest Gump.
He did indeed write Forrest Gump, yeah.
That's strange. Huh.
Which is a
That's,
terrible screenplay, I think.
Yeah, that I would like to recommend that movie at some point for the podcast, because I haven't seen it for years, and I know you feel very strongly about it, so that'd be an interesting one to go back to. Oh yeah, we haven't mentioned that this is also like critique of capitalism, and how not only is like racism and white nationality the problem, it's capitalism is also part of this problem, because it makes people so greedy that they start murdering others for their land. You know, it's like they have the idea of like, well, what did you do to deserve all of this money and to deserve living on top of a gold mine of oil, and so we're gonna take it back from you. Yeah, it's a combination of capitalism and white nationality, or not white nationality,
white
but you know, white supremacy. Yeah.
I noticed. I don't know if you noticed the Molly's. I don't know what his title is, but the guy from No Country for Old Men, who she talks to get her insulin.
Yes. Yeah.
He has a giant poster of the KKK behind him.
That's
like the first scene. I didn't notice that. I watched it twice, and like I didn't notice that my first watch.
I should see it again in theaters. Yeah.
It's just from the beginning. It is set up for everyone to lose.
Yeah, and there's like obviously that scene later with the KKK and the like parade, you know, and it's just like it's very jarring. Yeah. It's such a jarring moment that that like normalization. That's another part that like gets you into the shoes of like existing in this film's time and place, and sort of like makes all of these events easier to like believe, you know, despite the fact that they happened. Anyway, I don't know. I also loved seeing him get slapped in the ass with a paddle. That was like so strange. That was like almost comedic. That's one of those scenes, despite how like funny that scene is in concept, that scene is like genuinely one of my favorites in the film, just because it's so different. And like seeing it in theaters, it was like everybody had a combination of laughing and groaning and like ew, because it's so weird. It's like
it was, when I watched it for the first time, I was just like, it's so disturbing. In just such a weird way, and it's like their relationship is so odd. It's such a bizarre thing to include. It's crazy that it wasn't like, it feels almost like if any scene was going to get edited out, it would be that one. I don't know, but it's so effective in a strange way.
Yeah, it's like the one scene that sort of like goes over that line of like, oh my god, what? And it like creates such a different feeling that it could be tonal whiplash for some people, but again, it just made me more invested
me too.
in the film. So I don't know if I have much more to say about it, really.
I don't know if I do either. I think the things that can be said about it feel beyond us in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
because it's just so much. I will say, like, I think just on the ending, I think it's like one of my 5 favorite endings ever. Maybe it is such a personal, like, for Scorsese, a sensitive ending, and it is also such a selfless ending at the same time, even though he puts himself in it. It's just a lot of ways so powerful and really just beautiful stuff. I think it's Scorsese's most sensitive movie. It's his most humanistic.
It's very memorable and unique, and I think a lot of my favorite endings are the ones that like as prominently as possible look directly into the audience and say like, okay, now the movie is done, now we're in real life, so like take something that you've learned. So like, not to spoil anything, but movies like The Holy Mountain or like The Taste of Cherry
has a similar thing.
Yeah, Gummo. Movies like that end on like a bookend that like fade into reality. It's fascinating stuff, and I'm very excited to see it again. Sorry?
All That Jazz is another ending like that.
Oh yeah. So and I caught it in IMAX. I'm gonna give this one a 9 out of 10 on first watch.
I give this a 10 out of 10.
Nice.
Absolute all-time masterpiece for me. It just blew me
it's
away.
my favorite of the year as well.
Yeah, I'm really curious how it's gonna do in Oscar season. Like, it's because it feels like Oppenheimer had it for a while, and I was thinking, you know, Scorsese's won his stuff, but this just feels so quintessential and grand that I feel like if Scorsese was ever going to make a movie to win another Best Picture, it would be this one. Yeah, I think
so far. So far for my like predictions, as far as Oscar goes for 2023, I think Killers of the Flower Moon is going to win Best Adapted Screenplay. I think Anatomy of a Fall is going to win Best Original Screenplay. I think Best Lead Actor is going to be Cillian Murphy. Best Lead Actress is going to be Lily Gladstone.
Yeah. Have you seen Priscilla yet? Or?
No, I haven't, actually. I should watch that one, yeah.
I don't think she'll win, but I think Kylie Spinay, I don't know how to pronounce her name.
Wow, okay.
Get a nomination.
Yeah. And I think Best Foreign Feature is probably going to go to Zone of Interest, but that still has a while to come out.
It might go to Anatomy
Also,
of a Fall.
we could be looking at Hayao Miyazaki getting another Oscar for Best Animated Film, potentially.
What else has come out this year? That would
Spider-Verse. I do love Spider-Verse.
True, yeah.
But I don't see that winning an Oscar as much as like a new Miyazaki. But yeah, still.
I mean, the last one won, so I don't know.
Yeah. Wait, did it?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That makes me happy.
Better wins, yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, Best Original Screenplay, Fool's Paradise.
I mean, yeah.
I joke.
And
but
Best Picture.
God damn it, I wanted to watch that
going
movie.
to the Mario movie.
Mario movie, most likely, yeah.
Sorry, the Super Mario movie.
Of course. It's very super.
Yeah.
So,
have you seen that?
I did watch it, yeah. God, I watched Mario movie and FNAF movie simply out of curiosity. Mario movie is like a plain... It's like a one piece of stale bread, whereas Five Nights at Freddy's is one piece of like moldy stale bread. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, this is doing damage to my body. Anyway, do you have a movie to recommend for next episode?
Let me look at the list you have on Letterboxd. Have you seen the movie Faces by John Cassavetes?
Oh no, I still haven't. Yeah, that's one of the few I've seen. Yeah,
it's one of the ones I've been meaning to watch for a while. So I think maybe
nice. Okay,
I love talking about Cassavetes, so I think that might be a good one to do.
Cool, perfect. Yeah, I've seen Opening Night and A Woman Under the Influence, and those are like his two biggest ones. You know.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, his Woman Under the Influence is like huge compared to everything else he's done. Like,
yeah.
But Opening Night, that's maybe my favorite movie ever. That's like one thing that comes close to Mulholland Drive.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, Faces by John Cassavetes will be discussed in the next episode. Yeah. And also what is coming out soon is Dream Scenario. That's coming out next week. Or on Thursday on the 23rd. So if we both end up watching that would be like a fun thing to discuss possibly.
Yeah, also that movie Saltburn, which doesn't look great, but
Oh yeah.
I still
that looks at least fascinating. I might watch it.
I haven't seen Promising Young Woman, but I do not like what's her name, Emerald Fennell. It feels very, I don't know, euphoria like, which is just a lot of the problems I have with Gen Z.
It's a weird one. That is one that I might check out of just pure curiosity. But regardless, thank you all for listening.
Yeah.
Rate us on Spotify, whatever you feel like rating us. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't, if you prefer engaging in podcasts there. I have links in the description to Keaton's Letterboxd and Instagram, as well as my Letterboxd, Twitter, and YouTube channel, where I will be uploading, as well as this YouTube channel. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you in another 10 months. Goodbye.
About 3 years. Bye, everyone. Yep.